The Soviet Union was seen as a major aggressive power, and there you had in the middle of this dilemma the Olympic Games.
The United States does not wish to be represented in a host country that is invading and subjugating another nation.
It was going to be impossible for any Americans to go to the Games.
The British government did not approve of going to the Moscow Olympic Games. It became a free-for-all.
We were sent letters and photographs from 10 Downing Street.
You realise you're in the middle of a propaganda war.
We were sort of taken to one side and told, look, don't celebrate anything too much.
They were good games. It was the beginning of the, people refer to it as the golden era.
We've demonstrated that an Olympic boycott is not effective.
We don't ever really want to go through that again.
I was 19 in 1980 when I came here, and like a lot of young people, I was concerned about what was going on in the world, and the Cold War was at its height. And for me, there was a real fascination about coming to the Soviet Union to see what it was really like, to try and find out a little bit more. And I was really interested in what I was going to experience here.
Cram stretching those long legs of his. Still only 19. Time of
25 years ago, the world was a turbulent, potentially dangerous place. An ideological war was raging between the United States and the Soviet Union, between capitalism and communism.
The Soviet Union was seen as a major aggressive power with very substantial weaponry that was, in our view, a threat, a serious threat to the stability and peace of Western Europe. So the climate was extremely tense.
Despite the arms race, these two superpowers would not clash directly in the heat of conventional battle, but this Cold War would impact on all aspects of life that pitched East and West together. All aspects, including sport. There was an aggressive dimension to any sporting clash between the USA and the USSR. In the Winter Olympics of 1980 in Lake Placid, the two giants met on the ice for what would always be much more than just a hockey match. The Americans won that battle, but the Soviet Union had already secured a significant propaganda victory over its rival.
The stadium seats just over 100,000 people, though the Russians still hope some 2 billion viewers around the world will watch the display to outdo anything yet seen in the capitalist West.
Some 5 years before America's momentous ice hockey victory, the International Olympic Committee decided that Moscow, and not Los Angeles, would be the venue for the 1980 Summer Games. Although back then, winning the right to stage the Olympics was not the glittering prize that it is now.
In '72 we had the tragedy of the Israeli athletes shot. '76 we went to Montreal and it was an absolute financial disaster. So by the time we came around to 1980, it was like par for the course. You know, here's the Olympics, so here's more trouble.
Frankly, nobody at that stage wanted to touch the Olympic Games, or really as a city, the movement with a barge pole.
But while the Olympic movement itself was listing badly, the quality of the athletes set to take part had never been greater, or more exciting.
This crowd gasping at the speed at which he takes these hurdles.
Around the world, some stellar names were preparing for Moscow. In America, a young Carl Lewis and the world's greatest sprint hurdlers, Ed Moses and Ronaldo Nehemiah, were set to make a huge impact.
I was just 21 years of age, so it was very important, my first Olympic Games. I had taken the world by storm since I was 18, been the most dominant hurdler, so the only thing left to do was to go to the Olympic Games and win the gold medal.
I was running very easy that year, so it was a good year for me. And in 1980, I did resign from my job as an engineer specifically to train for the 1980 Games, and I actually was in probably the best shape of my life.
Britain too was blessed with a golden generation of swimming talent, and I was trying to force my way into an outstanding looking track team that promised a real return of medals from Moscow.
By the time we got to the late 70s in track and field, I think people in the UK were beginning to recognise that we were emerging as our most successful national sport.
But just 6 months before the Games were due to start, the latest twist in the Cold War would set off a chain of events that would deny the world the chance to see some of its greatest athletes on the greatest stage, and threaten the very existence of the Olympic movement.
Moscow, the original entry to Afghanistan, seemed uncomplicated.
Christmas 1979. Soviet paratroopers poured into the Afghan capital of Kabul to prop up a communist government that was under threat from tribal resistance.
They were convinced that the war would not last very long, that everything will be over, and I don't think that the Moscow Olympics were taken seriously into consideration.
This was the start of the big freeze in the Cold War.
This is a callous violation of international law and the United Nations Charter. It is a deliberate effort of a powerful atheistic government to subjugate an independent Islamic people.
A political boycott had blighted the 1976 Games in Montreal. African athletes stayed away in a protest at the apartheid regime in South Africa. It wouldn't take long before talk of a much bigger US-led boycott of the 1980 Olympics began to circulate.
By November, December, there were hints that the Americans may not field a team in the Olympic Games.
It was something that we knew was on the horizon, but I think many of us just were hopeful that it wouldn't happen.